Welcome to another episode of Cooking 100-Year-Old Recipes. In this episode, I'm making scalloped Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are believed to originate from the city which they get their name from, Brussels, Belgium. Records trace them back to the 13th century in the Brussels area. The French coined the name in the 18th century. They're not native to the United States, and they are not known to grow in the wild. In 1800, the French introduced Louisiana to Brussels sprouts. New York and California are the leading growers in the U.S., with the Netherlands and European countries also growing the sprouts. If you did not like Brussels sprouts as a child, you may like them better now because they have, in fact, become better tasting. In the 1990s, Dutch scientists identified precisely what made the sprouts bitter. As a result, seed companies in the Netherlands began searching through their extensive collections of older varieties of Brussels sprouts for one that have a lower concentration of glucosinolates. Once the most promising varieties were identified, plant breeders crossed them with the newer varieties that had other desirable characteristics, such as higher yields and excellent disease resistance. The resulting varieties have proven popular with both farmers and chefs, and ultimately, people like you and me who eat them. So the first step is to remove the outer leaves and trim up the Brussels sprouts and soak them for 20 minutes. I do not have a whole quart, which is what the recipe calls for, so I'm going to proportionately adjust the ingredients. And I will put this on fast forward so you don't have to see me cut through every single Brussels sprout. And I'm putting them in a measuring cup that's too big just so that I have an idea of how many I have, so I get the proportion correct. And also there's plenty of room for soaking. I'm saving these leaves that have fallen off because I have an idea of what I might try with them at the same time as I'm cooking this recipe. If it doesn't turn out well, we're not going to talk about it, but if it does, it's a bonus recipe from me to you. So let's see where we're at with this. Almost 4 cups, not quite, 3.5 cups. Now that it's filled with water, push down on them. I can see that there's about a cup of water down there with no Brussels sprouts, so this is 3 cups. So the next step is to get the celery ready. There is celery in this, and there's quite a bit. Let's see. I will need the right proportion. I will need about a cup of celery cut into pieces, and she doesn't say what size pieces, but I'm going to do probably pretty thin. And I always string my celery. If you think you don't like celery, it might be the texture. And if you take the strings out, even when you eat it raw, it's a different experience. And you can use a vegetable peeler. I just pull them out like this, and I'll go in the soup stock pot. Let me start with this first one because sometimes it's hard to know how much celery you're going to end up with until you start cutting it. I have a measuring cup here so we can keep up with the progress. And I'll trim it so that it's a nice size against the Brussels sprouts. You see how small I'm going to make it. Celery does slim down a bit when it's cooking. I think that's good. Oh, it will be treated as a vegetable in here, not just an accent for flavor, because of the volume in proportion to the Brussels sprouts. It's about 1/4 inch. And it's getting a little bit broad here towards the base. I'm going to put another cut in there. There's a lot of celery in this cookbook, so I think it was a pretty popular ingredient, not just for flavoring your soup stocks with the carrot, onion, and celery trio, but there's celery soup, celery salad, a few other celery things, and I would like to try some of those, see how they are. I think celery can be a little bit of a polarizing ingredient, but as I say, anything made well tastes delicious. I'm not a fussy eater. Alright, I'm going to need another, this part of a stalk to get this up to at the full cup that I'm going for. And to peel it, if you just look at the top, you can see where the strings are. Just get your knife in there and they'll come right off. Took a lot off with that one, but that's fine. It's going into the soup stock. Not be wasted. My soup stock bag in the freezer is so such a mishmash of things. I even have some eggshells in there. Yes, of course I strain it. There we go. Okay, so let's start up here. Some floppy celery. That's alright. I need this whole stalk. And it's getting a little wide again, so I'm going to put in another cut. And that's a cup. Done with that, and the Brussels sprouts are nearly done soaking. It's been almost 20 minutes, so I'm going to get to cooking them. I'm just going to drain the Brussels sprouts and get this water boiling. And they need to simmer until they are tender. I have that back burner going so that once this starts boiling, I'll move it back there and begin on the celery and the white sauce. Alright, simmering. Put the Brussels sprouts in now, and I'm not using a lot of water because I don't want them to get waterlogged. Lose a lot of their flavor. So they'll be partly boiling, partly steaming. So fill them up, put them back there. I'll leave that on a medium-high heat, and then here, I'm going to lower it to a medium heat, and then start cooking the celery. I have too many glass things clinking around. Okay, so I'm going to use my, let's see, flat whisk. And it says, let's see, I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of butter. And then the celery gets cooked for 2 minutes in the butter. It's been about 2 minutes. The celery's gotten some nice bright green color to it. And then I'm going to add an equal amount of flour to butter. So I'll be doing 2 tablespoons. And just let that cook, get that flour taste out of there. A little bit of salt. I'm going to start adding in the milk. I'm using whole milk. I want to keep it relatively thick because the Brussels sprouts will let off some moisture. You don't want soupy scalloped Brussels sprouts. Let's see if it needs more salt. Yes, just a little bit. And I'm going to do white pepper so that it keeps the white look and not black pepper. And this is to be put into a baking dish, but I'm going to do 2 small scalloping dishes like this. And I'll bake one for supper tonight, and then we'll have a fresh one tomorrow. I don't like to pre-bake if I don't have to, because it never reheats quite the same when you have a crispy top like this will have. I think that looks good. These look perfect, so I'm going to drain them now. Add them back into the pan, and I'll let the heat steam off any excess moisture before I add the celery white sauce. My butter is melted, and I have it on the silicone pad, so it doesn't get anything hot on my counter. And I'm just going to add some of the breadcrumbs. I'm using panko because that's what I like. a little more. And I'm also going to salt this. Put these back here. And let me spoon in the Brussels sprout. And I haven't forgotten about those leaves back there. And just sprinkle the breadcrumbs on top. Alright, so I'm going to bake one now and try it for you, and then the other one I will cover and put in the fridge to bake fresh tomorrow. I have to say, this is another delicious recipe from this book. The celery provides texture, which breaks up the texture of the Brussels sprouts. So I would not say it gives depth of flavor, but it gives a depth of texture, which is nice. I think the addition of something like nutmeg or onion powder would benefit. Otherwise, it's a simple, mild family favorite that you can serve on a weeknight or on a holiday.